Very honored to be here today to speak with you a little bit about my philosophies around entrepreneurship education and what I believe each of us as educators and those of you who are students have as a role within that process. Entrepreneurship and education, many would say, is an oxymoron. They're two different words. They are, can you even teach entrepreneurship? What I would like to do with you over the next 20 minutes is share some of the experiences I've had in terms of doing that at Northwestern. And where I think there is some learning, and my hope is some takeaway from you in terms of your roles in this equation. This is a classroom at Harvard Business School where I went. It actually wasn't as nice as this when I was there. And many people would argue that true learning in business, and specifically in entrepreneurship, occurs in an environment like this. Why? It occurs partly in this environment because it is a case-based, participative type of learning. So this is very anti-lecture. So at Harvard, when I was there, and we basically prepped 3 cases a day. The cases were real live examples of what occurred in business, and we were studying them, and then we would discuss them among our peers. The learning would occur not just from the faculty member who stood up there, but from each of us and sharing our experiences. We'd bring in the subjects of those cases. And when I started at Harvard, when I first went to Harvard Business School, when I was thinking about attending, I was so blown away by this approach that I thought case-based learning is the way you should learn. And I was so impressed with it and so in love with it when I was at school there that when I came out, I decided I was going to continue teaching at least part-time while I was working full-time. And that's something that I did. But what I've realized is that even though learning still occurs here, listening to my students, I realized that learning also has to occur in this type of environment. This is a building in downtown Evanston. We rent the 3rd floor, and this is an incubator where we have students starting up companies today. We actually have live companies running out of this incubator. Is that unique? No, lots of schools do that. But this is also learning. The challenge is that in the academic world, this is what we're designed to do. We know how to teach in a classroom. We know how to stand up here and talk to you, right? Cases is a new way of thinking. But the reality of the situation today is that the way we think about teaching and what is actually occurring from a learning perspective is very different. And as students, you have an obligation to help your institutions realize that what we do today, and this classroom is universal. This exists in the United States, this exists in Asia, all throughout the world we use this forum. The challenge is that learning also occurs here. And as academic institutions, we have an obligation to understand that we have to provide, we have to play a role in all of that learning. And that's different. And that's a radical change and something I believe that we have to be more and more cognizant of. What qualifies me to talk about this? Well, I don't think anything really does, but I wanted to just tell you a little bit about some of the work we've done and how it's been recognized. I'm going to talk to you a little about a concept called NUvention, which is a set of courses that we offer. Earlier this year, Inc. magazine recognized it as one of the top 10 entrepreneurship courses in the United States. It ranks us up there with Stanford, U of C, Harvard, and others. NUvention, Nikhil Sethi, who's one of our alums, actually just graduated a year ago. He runs today a company in New York that will do over $10 million in revenue, has raised over $3 million in traditional venture capital. And Forbes magazine in August named him one of the 9 college all-stars, one of the top 9 entrepreneurs to come out of a college. He is an electrical engineering and computer science graduate. He graduated in June of last year and is running a $10+ million revenue company today and raised almost $3 million from First Round Capital, which is a tier 1 in venture capital firm. He's a student. He was a student a year and a half ago. Things in this world and the world of entrepreneurship education have changed. In Courses that we've offered, we have created these companies. Adaptly is Nikhil's company. NUcurrent is actually a company in the world of wireless power. This was done in a medical class that we do, where our students had this idea around creating that implantable medical devices shouldn't have wires, and you can actually communicate in a wireless way. It's raised over $1 million in financing. Sweet Perk is a concept that's in our incubator today that's all about trying to bring the power of the smartphone and the power of couponing down to the local merchant who sits in a downtown area or in a merchant corridor, whether it's downtown Evanston or any other community, any other business district around a college or university today, in process of actually raising funding. Groovebug is a company that came out of this year's class. It today is the second most popular music application available in the App Store. It just launched not even a month ago. The basic concept here that our students thought of is that when you listen to music, you'd actually like to understand a little bit more about that music. And that is a group of students that includes students from our School of Journalism, our School of Business, our School of Engineering, our College of Arts and Sciences, and our School of Communications, all working together. It has received over $150,000 in angel venture capital from some of the major players in the music industry. And their basic concept was, just because we listen to music doesn't mean we don't do other things at the same time. And if you're into music, you want to understand more about your music. Within 1 week of launching, it was highlighted on the App Store as one of the best new apps out there. These are students. These aren't serial entrepreneurs. These are students. NUvention is a concept we have launched, and it came from a student idea. NUvention is a way of basically building businesses within a class, combining the learning you get in the classroom with the learning you get in the real world. It is interdisciplinary, which means we bring students in from all different schools. It's the only course we offer at Northwestern where our Kellogg Business School students sit in the same room with an undergrad in computer science. Business school students don't normally take classes with their classes are with other business school students, not with students from other schools. Why is that the case? The world has changed. 3 years ago, I would get calls from Kellogg students saying, do you know any developers that I can reach that are looking for part-time work? And the normal approach that Kellogg student would take with that developer is they would say, we'll pay you, X dollars an hour, or we'll give you 2 or 3% of the company. Today, when they call looking for that person, my response is, I'm sorry, they don't exist. They're out there building companies already. They are not looking for the business side. The technologists, the engineers, the scientists, and the world I live in are out there building companies, and the MBAs are, in many cases, following them, not the other way around. That's a fundamental shift. We try to do in these courses basically vertical slices. Medical Innovation is what we've been doing for the past 5 years. It's our oldest course. It actually came from an idea from one of our students who had done something at Stanford similar, but not as interdisciplinary. The last 2 years I said, well, if we could do it in medical, we can also do it in the world of the web and in the world of energy and clean tech. These courses are interdisciplinary, but they're also experiential. You build a company within the class. This is what students today, I believe, are looking for out of this type of education. It is the evolution of case-based learning. Do we use cases? Do we have a classroom? Yes. But one of the most important things we push our students to do is go out and talk to customers. Go out and engage in the real world. Get out of the classroom. Get away from Google. Get away from Facebook. Get away from all the other tools we use to engage. The reality is, those are all valuable tools, and I'm an avid user and supporter of all of them, but at some level, if you want to build a business and you want to launch a product, you got to go out and talk to the people that you're going to, and watch the people who are actually going to use it. So that still occurs between one person watching another. You could do it. You can try doing it on Skype. There's lots of different technologies, but that interaction is extremely important. We are trying in our way in the academic world to simulate the best way we can, creating a product and service and creating a business. I believe this is something academia can do. We are doing it, and as all of you who represent all different academic institutions, it is your obligation to encourage those institutions to start thinking this way. Startups and companies like I just showed you aren't our goal, but they're a nice validation. Our job is to teach you what the process is like, so that at some point in your career, when you have an idea, you can actually consider building a business. I'm not trying to push all my students to become entrepreneurs. I'm trying to help them understand that in their careers, each and every one of my students and each and every one of you will have ideas that could become very large businesses. The difference between you and Mark Zuckerberg is that he did it. Most of us don't do it. And that is the challenge. We do this not as a group of tenured track faculty members. I am not a tenured faculty member. I'm a clinical faculty member. I partner with our traditional research-based faculty, but I also partner with our students, our alums, government and industry. In our energy class, the class is a partnership between a Center for Energy we have at the school, Argonne National Labs in Lamont, which is a Department of Energy national lab, our tech transfer office, and it is chaired, each one of these courses is not chaired by a faculty member, it's chaired by one of our alums who has had success as an entrepreneur or innovator in those spaces. We bring all those different institutions together. That's not traditional academia. That's not, teaching one of these courses is many more times more work. Teaching one of these courses is not something that traditionally fits into what a tenure track faculty member does. My job at Northwestern is to be a change agent. I am and my customer are students as well as alums. How I make change happen is not because of what I do, it's because of what my students do. I respond to my students and try to incorporate their ideas and their vision into what we do. This has worked. It has gotten us national recognition. What do I believe? Entrepreneurship can be taught. Absolutely and positively can be taught. You can, no matter how humble you believe you are, no matter how passive you believe you are, you can be a great entrepreneur. Watch interviews of Mark Zuckerberg over the last few years, from when he first started to today. He has evolved immensely. He was an entrepreneur when he started this company, but he didn't actually focus on things like revenue and a lot of other things that we traditionally teach, and I'll get to that in a minute. Students are better qualified to be entrepreneurs than most of us. I get calls today from major companies in the Chicago area and globally who are interested in what we teach because they're trying to figure out how they can apply it in their companies. The advantage I have is students aren't biased. They still are interested in learning. They don't think they know it all, and they're willing to challenge the paradigm. That makes it much easier, I believe, to be an entrepreneur. We in academia are still trying to figure out how to meet students' needs in this area. Many of you read about Peter Thiel, one of the founders of PayPal, who's gone out and offered $100,000 to a bunch of high school students who have interesting ideas that he thinks that can become businesses. And he's basically saying higher education, colleges, universities, don't get it. These people can be, did Mark Zuckerberg need to be at Harvard? Did Bill Gates need to be at Harvard? No, they could have just done this separately. Do I believe in what Peter is saying overall? No. But what I do believe is that we as academic institutions are not doing everything we could do to help you. The only way that's going to change is if you push us. It is your obligation to do that. It is, because academia is an institution. We don't change quickly. I was fortunate that I was brought in by a dean who was looking for that change. In the world of today, innovation follows no rules. There are certainly great frameworks. There are certainly great theories around it. You'll hear from some other speakers today that will present some of those, and I fully believe in those. But I don't think every single company I have watched my students develop breaks rules. Every single one of them doesn't follow a traditional approach. Not all of them raise money. Some of them do it on their own. There are no rules any longer. And each and every one of you is empowered to do something here. Entrepreneurship breaks all the rules, and sometimes it doesn't have to be truly innovative. Think about the companies that we view today as phenomenally innovative and are massive accumulations of wealth. Apple, Google, Facebook. Were they pioneers in their spaces? No. They watched others. Facebook, Friendster, MySpace. Google, Lycos, many other search engines beforehand. Apple, many of its competitors. And they saw what they were doing right and what they were doing wrong, and they focused on building better solutions into those markets. Those companies today have phenomenal valuations. Did the founders of those companies rack their minds for days on end, like my students do, to come up with the ultimate, most creative idea? No. They just went out, they went after something they were passionate about. And that you're seeing that passion today in some of the speakers that I've already heard, and you will see that going forward. And sometimes that passion doesn't have to be transferred into a for-profit business. We, in my world, are as encouraging of social enterprises, non-for-profit businesses, as for-profit businesses, because we want our students to be able to go after their passions. Where do I learn from today as an academic? It's actually not from other academics as much as it is from what's going on out there. These are four different programs that I actually have studied, been part of, and actually incorporate into our curriculum. Techstars was one of the first concepts of bringing together a group of people who had ideas and giving them 3 months together and giving them a little bit of funding and seeing what they can do. And they've launched many, many companies. Originally started out of Boulder, Colorado. Y Combinator, many of you heard, is an incubator based in the Valley that has created many different companies. The approach that they are using are approaches that we are bringing into our curriculum. Green Start is a San Francisco-based approach to taking the same concepts that Techstars and Y Combinators use for web startups and use for clean tech. Accelerate is a version of that has occurred here in Chicago. 3 years ago, nothing like this existed in Chicago. Accelerate's now run on its second year. There's actually another version of Accelerate called HealthBox that will be starting here in January that will focus on health startups, healthcare type startups. What's occurring in these different things? 3 months. 2 or 3 people, a lot of mentorship, a little bit of classroom training, and companies are coming out of them that angel investors and traditional venture capitalists are backing. Entrepreneurship has changed. Innovation has changed. These are examples of catalysts in that space. Who gets this? Guess what? Most of these concepts, most of these theories didn't come out of what I would consider the best centers for entrepreneurship out there, whether that's Stanford or MIT or Harvard. Stanford, MIT, and Harvard have gone out and found these individuals and brought their thinking into their curriculum. It didn't come out of the research that they did. These are folks that were practitioners. Stephen Blank, 4 Steps to the Epiphany. Stephen came up with the underlying idea of if we have product development as a process, why don't we think about customer development as a process? And actually he's now on faculty at Stanford. Business Model Generation is a great book that highlights the importance of the business model, not the business plan. I don't teach students to write business plans anymore. Business plans aren't what gets back today. Business models get back today. And the business model canvas that Osterwalder proposes is a great starting point. These 2 works were done before the web became as hot as it is. Running Lean is a great example. It's an ebook that's out there that applies these concepts to doing web-based startups. And the number 2 book today on the New York Times bestselling list is called The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. Eric is a former CTO of Invo, which is an animation company, and he actually is pioneering some of the concepts that are gaining phenomenal traction in terms of go out there, build companies, and learn as you do it. And Eric just spent the last 1.5 years as an entrepreneur residence at Harvard Business School, and it's something that has been embraced by Harvard. Harvard brought him in. He didn't come out of that environment. These are some of the folks who get it. Your obligation going forward is to think about your education, not just what you're doing in your academic environments, not just coming to events like this, but how you can supplement it by considering to build businesses out there in the real world. You may not do them, but at least go through the process if you can right now. Your worlds are going to get much more complex later on. You won't have the time, and you want to learn. Entrepreneurship is something that can be learned in the classroom, but also has to be realized out in the real world. I appreciate your attention and wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Thank you.
Professor Michael Marasco, everybody.